Thank you very much. So tonight on this show, I have Mr. Sadibou Kamaso. He is one of two presidential candidates for August presidential election of the Gambia Football Federation. He is one of two men who want to be in charge of Gambian football. He's my guest tonight. We'll discuss his campaign, but also other matters. Mr. Kamaso, thank you for joining me on my show tonight. I appreciate it.
Being here, Mr. Njie.
Thank you. Why did you decide to run against your boss, your current boss, who is currently the president of Gambia Football Federation?
Great question. I'd like to welcome all the viewers. My name is Sadibou Kamaso, as Mr. Njie has rightly said. Our football at the moment is at a crossroad, and it needs somebody who can help salvage that. I believe we've gotten to a point where the current leadership is running out of ideas. Out of my love for the country, immense passion for the game, and something that I have learned, I believe I am well poised to be able to make the change, because I've been there, I've learned, and I've understood. I know what the problems are, and I am very sure that I am the right man to make the change that can take our football forward. That is the reason why I am contesting, and I also have the backing of a good number of stakeholders who had approached me to say, this is a time that we can make the necessary change to take our football forward, and here we are today.
You have worked under Mr. Kababajo, LKB, for 7 years. What are the problems?
Not quite 7 years. 2014, when Kaba came into power, I was part of the campaign team. I did most of the work together with other people. I was part of the finance committee. He resigned at some point because there were certain issues that I had raised that I didn't believe matched my aspirations and things that I felt could be done. They were not changed, I resigned. So technically I have not served under his leadership for 7 years.
So you are talking about the problems.
I came in 2018 together with him when I was campaign manager for his team again. That was when I was co-opted as an executive member, because I was not part of the executive that was sold to the general stakeholders to vote them in. It was him, the 3 vice presidents. The other members usually voted in, that is the regional football associations, but the other 2, the 2 male and the 2 female, were also voted in. I was in part of that team. I was co-opted after all the campaign. They felt the need to have added me in because I could add value. They brought me in. So technically I served under him from 2018 to date.
So you are talking about Gambian football at a crossroads. By that you mean it is regressing, going backward. What are the problems since 2018 to now? What have you seen that motivated you, in terms of the problems really, that motivated you to be the #1 man at Football House?
It's usually something that politicians often do, make promises before they go into office. I'm a businessman. I could also say I'm a football politician, but I'm more of a businessman. I believe when we make promises, we should ensure we keep them. I believed in this team. That was why I went out to campaign, because everybody knows I was the campaign manager for Team Kaba. I went to every media house to campaign. I sold the ideas they had. But then again, when you get to a point where the ideas that you had sold to the people and they bought in, those ideas are not being manifested. It gets to a point you look back and then you look at yourself to say, did I really do what was right? Because I believe if I give you my word, I would do everything possible to ensure I keep to that. I've always used this example. If you feel in a team, the team is playing, and you get to a point where you feel some of the players in the team are not performing, even football laws gives you the opportunity to make certain change for the team to move.
Were you performing? You were part of that team in the starting 11. Were you performing?
Starting 11 is mine, so don't mistake it. The starting 11 is mine.
Okay, that's yours. Yes. But if you have a team, you are talking about substitution. You were part of the team that Mr. Kaba fielded. Were you doing your job?
I was doing my job very well. Anybody who knows me will tell you I was doing my job. And I believe that was the reason why even some members of
And there was no need to substitute you?
Not at all. I believe I was performing very well. If there was a need to substitute me, some of the members who are backing me today wouldn't have backed me. Because the idea came from some of the people that said, we believe you can do this. And I made consultations, and I thought I'll give it a go. But I believe I was performing. I have what it takes. I have the enthusiasm, I have the charisma, I have the knowledge, I've learned on the job. I have the passion for this thing. This is something that I love. This is something I've been doing. I've volunteered in it for far too long, and I know what we can do and what sort of changes we can bring in to move the football forward. And as I said, sometimes certain people are in position of leadership, but they get to a point where they run out of ideas, not because they don't love the game or whatever. They run out of ideas, and you feel you could bring in fresh new blood to move the football to the direction that you can. I was performing, and that's why I said I don't have any issues with any individual per se. What we want is change for the better. If you are playing a team and you get to a point where your own fans are booing you, you look at yourself and see there's a need for a change of style of play. But those style of play, if you're trying to apply that and it seems as if some members still want to go to the old style of play, then you feel, okay, no, I want to make a change.
Is your boss happy that you are running against him?
I don't think he is. But, I mean, if you served for 8 years, definitely, and you got into a point where the people who have voted you in have started losing confidence, I think it's honorable just to say, okay, I'll allow somebody fresh to come in and steer the affairs of this institution. You could be somewhere as an advisory role. That's the thing with Africa, because people don't tend to relinquish power.
So in your opinion, why do you think he wants to continue being in power at Football House?
I may not be in a position to answer that question. Maybe he'd be in a position to answer that question. But I feel that we are not achieving what we should and some of the promises we've made to the people.
So here is the thing. It is under his stewardship, leadership, that the Gambia, for the very first time, went to the AFCON. I mean, things have been happening in terms of Gambian football, in terms of success. Yet here you are saying that, I mean, things are not right at Football House, and you are the man to make sure that things are right for Gambian football to get to the next level. Would you say that Mr. Bajo's leadership has been a failure entirely?
No, I wouldn't say that. I've said this time and again. If people want to measure the success of Gambia Football Federation by the performance of the national team, we may be mistaken. The national team is full of professional players who are playing out there. We have a whole lot of young people who are playing locally, who are looking forward to going abroad. We have grassroots football that we need to regularize. We have women's football that we need to regularize to ensure the women have equal say, they have equal voting rights. We have issues regarding judicious resource mobilization and expenditure. We have corporate social responsibility. We have constitutional reforms, the welfare of the players, infrastructural development. So these are all the things that I believe we should look at, not just the success of the national team. Yes, you cannot take that credit from the Gambia Football Federation. Mind you, this is something that was sown a long time ago. That's why we always say you start something and there's a limit to where you can stop and somebody else can come and continue. Somebody else started it. There were a group of people who started it. We had the former professionals who started. Some of the players who are playing today started playing way before he came into power. And they're still part of the team. So that does not mean that is where it should stop. So if we want to measure the success of the national team, the Gambia Football Federation with the national team, we're making that is just 1 out of 10. So should I say 1 out of many? Because there are a whole lot of things that we should be able to regularize. Like now you have people talking about infrastructure.
Your priorities. We will get into your priorities. Before that, let's clear this, because it would appear that is what your critics and your opponents are using against you. That you steal $25,000. Did you steal this money?
I'm not a thief, and I've never stolen. I don't steal. Anybody who knows me will know that Sadibou is not a thief. I'm not a criminal. If I was a thief, I mean, if I had stolen the money by now, the commission would have found me guilty. There was a commission that was established. I think I made a video on this and I said that was going to be my last piece on that, because this thing has been ongoing. There's a letter that was written to me after the commission made its findings, and the president himself wrote the letter. The findings of the commission are with the GFF.
What did he say in that letter?
That the commission has seen that the money was actually stolen, and they appreciated the fact that I was one person
who stole the money.
Where it got stolen. I wouldn't know. If I knew who stole it, by then I would have, gotten that person to book. I was traveling with the money and it got missing. I don't know how it happened until I got to Angola. But what the commission found out, there was an investigation and there was a commission that was established, not by me, by the Gambia Football Federation, of course. They did their findings. Let them come out with the report.
Here is where I have a problem. I mean, I've tried to lay my hands on this report. I could not. I contacted one GFA official. GFF official. He tells me it is the president who can only give you the report. I called another person. He tells me the same thing. I called Mr. Bajo. Mr. Bajo would not pick the phone. I sent him a message to say that I need that report. I need to see what is in that report. That way, we can put it out there. The citizens will know what is in the report regarding the whole of this. You are saying that, I mean, you have been cleared.
I don't personally have a copy of the report. I don't.
Why didn't they give you the
I have
report?
no idea. See, that's the thing. I mean, I cannot force myself and get the report. I'm not at the head. I'm not the head of the GFF.
So how did you know that you have been cleared?
A letter was written to me.
By
when the report.
Do you have that letter?
Yes, I have the letter. I have it in my office. When the report came out in October, I think it was October, I've forgotten the date, October 2021, I believe, or 2020, when the report came out, the president called me some months after that, because even after the report came out, I was still paying. So it was months after he called me one day in his office to say, the report has arrived, and I wouldn't do anything to put you into trouble. I said, no, I mean, I've been taken to a commission, let them do their job. I have nothing to hide. I know that I have not stolen any money. And he showed me the recommendations of the commission that the balance of the money should be waived, and the money was indeed stolen because the commission even realized that I was making my personal resources available to the GFF, its programs and activities, and I was one person that was even lending them money when they need to travel or run other activities. So, I mean, I would travel even without allowances. I would travel and, have, monies returned, that was meant to cater for certain things. So that's what the commission found, and I was not the one who set up the commission. It was the GFF president who set up the commission, and they did their findings. So that's why I always say it is for the GFF to produce the the contents of
and they don't want to. It would appear that they don't want to, because you have said that anyone who wants a copy of the report should go to GFF. Yes. I have attempted to get it, but I have not been able to lay my hands on it. Let's also talk about, in terms of, I mean, this is $25,000. How much money did you pay back?
The balance that was left at the time the commission did their findings was 717, but I had even paid more. Because after that, what the issue was, when I was even making payments, the director of finance told me, these payments that you're making to the account, if we are reporting to the auditors, it's difficult to explain what they are. And I said, I don't care. It's monies that I should pay back to the GFF, and I'll still pay into the account. And that's what I was doing. So he said he had not received any official communication to say Sadibou should make payments into the account. But then if I was also holding the money and not knowing who to give it to, it would have led me to a more disaster, to something that was more distasteful. So as soon as I came back, I started making payments into the account, irrespective of what they were going to say. I think the president himself was even surprised that I was making payments.
What do you say to someone who is watching this and saying, I don't believe a single word that he's saying?
Everybody is entitled to their opinion. People are at liberty to choose what they want to believe and what they do not want to believe. Even the prophets, when they came, there are people who did not believe them. But people who know me, people whom I've interacted with, will tell you, I don't need anybody's dime. I manage a few players who I help to manage their finances, and they'll tell you, I don't even touch their monies. I don't even beg them. I do things the way they're supposed to be. Even if there's change, maybe in terms of exchange, I'll tell them this is the difference, and they'll be like, no, don't worry about it. And I'm General Secretary and CEO of Hawks. I am a signatory to that account. I am a businessman, and people I have dealt with. You make findings around the country, and people, you would not find anybody who would tell you he was dragged to court or he's been seen, taking people's monies here. But people are entitled to their opinion. It is up to them to choose what they want to believe or not. But anybody who knows me would know I'm an honest man. And that's why when I was told I was going to be taken to a commission, because this was when I was told that I should write a letter to say I'm paying the money. I said no, but I did mention that I was going to pay the money, and I have started. They said, but you still need to write. The president said you still need to write a letter to backdate it to say you're paying. I said no, I'll write it and date it today, but this happened in November, and here we are in February, you're asking me, end of January, asking me to write this letter. I wrote the letter, but I had started paying. They were even surprised. So by the time I even went to the commission with my receipts, those people were surprised that I had started paying. And I said, this is what I intended to do. I do not need the Federation's resources. I will pay this money back, because Things can happen to any individual. I think, some of these things was meant to happen so you could also know the people who you believe, because some people were there and they were smiling at the exco, pretending to be okay with you, and then you go in the streets and somebody tells you, guy, you know, those sort of things. So it was good for you to also know the people that are around you, the way, they think.
Yeah.
But as I said, people are at liberty to believe what I'm here today, I'm sitting here, I'm fasting. To say that I stole the money, I would not. If I had stolen the money, whatever I fasted or whatever I'm working on, I shouldn't get it. I didn't steal the money.
Well, that's clear enough. In terms of your priorities then, as someone who wants to be the next president of the Gambia Football Federation, there are various problems in this country when it comes to football. One of the problems that I look at and say that this should be topmost priority. Priority number one, infrastructure. This is a big issue in this country. I mean, even today they're talking about the Gambia may not play its qualifiers in Gambia. It might be played in Dakar. So that is a problem. What are you going to bring? What would a Sadibou Kamaso presidency bring in terms of infrastructure development?
See, the two most important things when it comes to football are a ball and a pitch. I keep saying this. I learned this from Sangdong, credits to him. Those two things, without a ball and a pitch, you're not playing football. Because you do not have a ball, what are you doing? You do not have a pitch, where are you playing the football? So infrastructure is very pertinent, is very paramount. What we are doing differently is the approach to these projects. The approach to these projects in the first place. Because for me, I do not believe when we start certain projects, you haven't finished some, you embark upon others. That is what has led us into these things. Over ambitiousness could also cause it. Now, when you're doing projects, you want to do a mini stadia, there are priorities. Before you start doing dressing rooms and pavilions and lights and other things, the first thing that you do is the pitch. So even whilst the players are playing on these pitches, you could do other works around the stadium. But if you go and bulldoze the whole pitch, the pavilions, the dressing rooms and everything, and then you rely on funds that we know comes in milestone payments, but even these milestone payments come in a certain way. So the approach for us is you have to prioritize what you do first and when. So the approach to these things has to be very clear, it has to be very precise, and you need consultants who have an understanding of what you need to do. So if I want to build a house, I do not go and start buying corrugated iron sheets. I know I have to do my foundation, I have to dig my foundation, I need stone, I need gravel, I need sand, cement and things like that. That is where I start. By the time I come to buying the roofs, material for that, that will come at its own stage. So the approach to it, that is what we're doing. So we are saying we want to transform the mindset of the general stakeholders. We keep focus on organizational effectiveness, development, accountability and transparency. Accountability, when people say that, some people think it's just about money. But even the actions that you conduct, you're accountable to the people. So you need that general stakeholder interaction to find out and understand from the people what are their priority needs. Some of these things, you could be thinking you're doing things the right way, when in actual essence, you're not giving the people what they want. When you engage a community that you want to do their pitch, you must be able to understand that this pitch may be earning these people certain revenue. You do it in phases. So we are saying we ensure that the playable surfaces are the areas that we will work on. That is why we said we will ensure that every region has a standard playing pitch first. Then eventually we could go in phases, like the summer. They did the artificial turf before they went further. So that is what we would do. So we will ensure that there is infrastructural development of international standard. But our approach would be done in consultation with people who have the understanding. Other countries have done it, and they've succeeded. They're getting the same revenue that we are getting from FIFA. So obviously something is not right from where it is being done.
So in terms of the monies that the FIFA is giving the Gambia, that weeks and months back you have all these talk and claim that these monies were in fact being stolen, they had been taken, being misappropriated, being misused of FIFA funds in respect of this infrastructural development that you are talking about.
Well, I don't like the word stolen, because when people say that, he who alleges must prove. You know, when you accuse people, if you accuse even the federation that somebody has stolen money, you need to prove that they've actually stolen it. So I don't think that would be the right word to say. As I said, it's the approach to some of these things. But people are always entitled to their opinion. They could say those things. And I believe engaging the stakeholders is key. Because when the journalists knock on your doors, or people who want to find out information about these things, we should be open to them because it's public office. You cannot be sitting in public office and operating like private. We should be in a position to be open. That's why we said we want to transform the mindset of the stakeholders. We keep focus on organizational effectiveness, development, transparency, and accountability. Because we have to be as transparent as possible. If you are not, because issues of allegations of corruption must be dealt in a very, careful manner. If you do not have proof of these things that you're saying, it's difficult to bring them forward. But then again, if you are the person who's being accused of being corrupt is sitting on information for far too long, you encourage a lot more suspicion, and what do you expect? They will be able to harbor whatever thinkings they're doing. And if you're not even delivering, it makes it even worse. So that is the issue here. So
you also talked about public office, but I want to relate that to government. Is the Gambia Football Federation completely independent of or from government? Because you have these sometimes claim by officials of the GFF that they are not answerable to government. The executive is not appointed or selected by the government. It is the people who vote these people directly into office. Then it is an independent institution.
I think people need to understand that a little bit more. What FIFA talks about is interfering in the affairs of the daily operations, in the sense that when people are elected into office, you cannot just come and yank people out like that. Because obviously they are voted in. They're just trying to promote democracy. But that does not mean to say you are not answerable to the government. It's the government that funds the national teams. You're using the Gambia name, the name of the Gambia.
And that is the state government.
Why do you call the president the chief patron of the Gambia Football Federation? Basically, what FIFA is trying to say, this is for legal minds, legal luminaries to explain to people to understand. Because sometimes you see in Africa, this only happens in African continents, where people are elected into office and government comes and yanks them out. But mostly it is based on issues of allegations of corruptions and things of that sort. But to say that government, the Gambia Football Federation is, I mean, you are under the laws of it's the laws of the Gambia that are governing the Gambia Football Federation. The stakeholders who are here are all, unless they want to change the name and give it International Football Federation, but we are under the auspice, we are under the Gambia government. It's the Gambia government that funds the national team. It's the Gambia government that should be paying the salaries of the coaches. So all these things are under the government. So if you claim that you're not under government, I mean, they could also just take themselves out of it. But to say that, what FIFA is basically saying is government interference into the affairs. It's just like somebody coming to the GPU, you're all under the GPU, no?
Yep.
So if the GPU wants to come and meddle into the daily affairs of this institution, I mean, or let's say another institution wants to come, and so the GPU would say, no. You see that even sometimes when something is said about your members and the GPU comes out to condemn that, that is what it is. It doesn't mean that the laws of the country do not govern you, no.
So in terms of I know the Gambia got to the quarterfinals of the AFCON, $1.7 million, about $88 million given to the Gambia. Where should that money go? Should it go to government coffers, or should that money?
I'm not sure if it is 88 million. 1.7 million. It was supposed to be 1.175.
Yes.
But there were times that the Gambia played certain matches and we were fined, a few times here and there.
Yes. So they will have to automatically take out.
Yes, that's what they do. They take their fines. It's just like a bank. You take a loan.
When you get money, they take it from you.
Yeah, they just deduct. So the actual figure of the Gambia Football Federation, because as I said, we are a public office. And we should be in a position to come out and tell the people, this is the amount of money that has arrived. Not wait for people to start speculating and coming with...
And saying this money came surreptitiously to Gambia, even the government wasn't aware of it. I am
not sure. I am not sure because I'm not the director of finance and I'm not the focal person at the executive level who's responsible for finance. I am a member of the finance committee, but this did not even come to our notice at the time. I am a vice chairman of the finance committee. But then again, I don't know when it came, but the last time we had a meeting last Saturday, the executive met, and we were informed that the money actually came, and they had done sort of an allocation as to how these funds are going to be spent. It was discussed at executive level, and issues that are discussed at executive level, there should be somebody who should come out and say that, you know, ethically and morally, I am not obliged to
discuss that. Let's also, still on your priorities, you are talking about grassroots football and league development. The Gambia Football League, if you look at it, I mean, I know a lot is being done in terms of taking the domestic league to another level, at least putting it on the map. How do you intend to, you know, develop the domestic league into a standard league where, I mean, even the young people who are playing in these leagues would see themselves in and feel proud that, okay, I am playing for, let's say, Hawks Football Club, and they are paying me well enough. I don't even need to play in Europe.
Professionalize it. Simple. Professionalize it, because all the clubs that are operating here are not operating as businesses. The Gambia Football Federation, First Division and Second Division leagues have been amateur since 1952. And I mean, for me, that's why I said, if we want to measure the success of the national team and take that and give all the credit to the Gambia Football Federation to say we've succeeded, we will be making a big mistake, because we have a whole lot of young people who are in the country who could benefit a lot more, even if they are unable to become professionals. Those who have gone professional have already made their mark. They're making their monies. Football could be one of the biggest sources of income for our young people in this country. How do we do that? When we start getting our clubs to become professional. And becoming professional, there are certain criteria that have to be met. Even though this club licensing thing is being done at the moment at the GFF level, but those who know would know that I'm a strong advocate for the league being professionalized. Because once we professionalize the league, I was even part of the people who went on a study tour to Morocco. I was personally trying to talk to some of my colleagues in Fufa and other countries in Uganda to see how they can help us learn from what they do. And when you professionalize the league, you set a certain criteria that clubs need to meet before they can
actually become football clubs.
Yes. Not to play
but to join in the league, yes.
So the amateur ones would actually be looking forward, or we will looking
to meeting those standards.
Yes. Yep. So when you do that, you know, the legal criteria, sporting criteria, administrative, you know, financial infrastructure, you have to meet all of these criteria, because you have to have your own infrastructure, like your own pitch, your clubhouse, you know, the administrative part. You need to ensure that you have the staff who are fully employed. You know, the financial criteria, you need to ensure that these people are contracted and they're being paid. Because the way our system is structured, you can't force some of these clubs to do this. Even though we have clubs that are contracting their players, and we always ask them to submit contracts, but even at the federation level, sometimes you realize clubs don't submit their contracts. And players need to have that liberty to be able to move or walk out of their contract if certain clauses are there that do not conform to what they believe. And then at least a minimum wage for the players, so they see this as something that is lucrative. I do not need to go out. I can become a pro and stay here. We've seen countries like Morocco, countries like Egypt, where most of their players are local. They play local. It will take us time, but we must start from somewhere. We've been there, and by now, I think after 8 years, by now, at least the professional league should have been in place. And for us, that is one thing that we are going to give very, very, you know, a key focus on, because we're going to ensure that the league becomes professional as quick as possible. We need to engage on government to ensure the right policies are in place. Then clubs would ensure that whether the players or the coaches, the physios, whoever is there is contracted. They have the minimum wages that they tend to receive, and all the infrastructure are in place. So there's even life after football for these people. So when they're doing these transfers, and if they are registered as businesses, they're able to conduct other businesses to be able to fund the clubs. The way the clubs are structured now, they cannot conduct business, they cannot buy shares in other, you know, because they're not registered as businesses. But once you do that, you're able to buy shares even in banks. You could sell a player and you have a good chunk of money coming in, and then you deposit those monies into the bank to say you're buying shares or whatever, you're investing in treasury bills or whatever it is, to be able to. But as the way they are not in a position to do that. But when they become professional, all these clubs must be registered as businesses so they can start earning revenue to be able to sell replica jerseys, making monies and conducting other businesses to support their clubs, because every business does that. So we want to ensure the league is professionalized, and by so doing we will put in certain conditions that need to be met. Once you meet them, you can stay there. Some of the clubs who do not meet all the criteria, because it will be difficult to get all the clubs to meet the criteria, you get a provisional license to say before the league ends you should try and meet so and so. So the clubs who are amateur would also be working their way up towards becoming a professional league.
What is your strategy in respect of your campaign to peeping Kaba to the line come August?
Why would I release my strategy here? That is not something that I would do. What we are doing is to ensure, because the thing is, what we are doing is sell our ideas to the stakeholders.
How do you go about selling it?
One of them is coming up with the starting 11.
Yes.
The starting 11 captures what we have for Gambian football. Because oftentimes people want to come and take over office and you do not have anything to sell to the stakeholders. This took me a while to do. I did it, and then I shared it with some of my colleagues who looked at it and thought it was a brilliant idea. They dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and eventually it is out here.
You're this starting 11. I interviewed Professor Momodou Ba. He was one of the aspirant presidential candidates in 2021. He had something very similar, starting 11. And then came Mr. Kamaso, starting 11.
Oh,
there are claims that you stole his idea.
I don't even know Professor Momodou Ba. I have never seen that starting 11. I have never seen it anywhere. The starting 11 came with an idea where I had 10 points. And Aliou Bey said, no, why don't we make it 11? Because there are 11 players on the pitch. So to show you that we didn't even steal his idea, I had 10 points. And then he said, why don't we make it 11?
That's clear.
So I don't even know Professor, but I've never seen that document.
That's clear. So I also want to ask about the issue of women. I mean, I know women too, they also, I mean, they also have a role that they are playing in Gambian football, and it has to be appreciated. What is your plan for them?
Certainly, the future of football is women football. Anything women are in, it becomes lucrative. Since they started, gaining prominence, we've seen how much money FIFA pumps in. Even when the COVID money came in, they gave them their separate money. That shows you how much focus FIFA is putting into women's football. And we want to ensure that we take this even further. And that is why the key focus, should I say not the key focus, the areas that we want to focus on, the primary side is to ensure that the women football clubs, the first and second division clubs, get equal voting rights like the men. This we will sell to the general stakeholders, so they come to the General Assembly. Because the situation we are in now, all the women's football clubs do not vote directly at the General Assembly. All their votes are consolidated in just 3 votes that is casted by the Women's Football Association. But then again, this Women's Football Association, instead of being in a position to run the affairs of their league, their league is being run by the Gambia Football Federation. So there's some sort of mismatch, or should I say a bit of confusion there. If you have an association, I believe their funds and everything that is due to them should be given to them, let them run their affairs, and then they come back to you. It's just like FIFA giving us money and then they want to run our league for us. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The first thing that we want to do is to bring them at par with a male-dominated society in terms of football. We want to remove this patriarchal atmosphere that we have, because eventually they can help do a lot more. Now that we've seen our men have qualified to the AFCON and they've gone all the way to the quarterfinals, the women just got knocked out by Cameroon, recently, and who knows, they could have made it. And gradually we could even help remove this gender stereotype and all these mindsets some of our parents have about women not being able to play football because they cannot bear children. And this is also another area we will work on. So key is to ensure that they have voting rights. Another area is to ensure that we have women at the decision-making table. The way the Gambia Football Federation constitution is structured is you have the president, you have the 3 vice presidents, you have 2 male and 2 female, but the 2 male, one of whom must be a retired referee. This we also want to change, because the 2 male and the 2 female, one of them, it could instead of one of the male being a retired referee, it could even be a female. You know, we have the Aissatou Tourés who have gone, you know, have gotten their FIFA badges. So when they retire, they should be able to sit there at the decision-making table. This is something that we also want to do in terms of constitutional reform. So if you look at our starting 11, things are interrelated. And these are things that we cannot do directly, but taking it to the stakeholders to sell the idea to them. So aside of them being voters, we are bringing in women as part of the vice presidents. I said this. One of my vice presidents is going to be female.
So you want to promote the issue of women?
Certainly, we are taking this further. We are running away with it.
So we are running out of time. The issue of the voting, I mean, what? You have the Gambia, more than 2 million people. You have 2 million.
2.5, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Then when it comes to voting, you have what? 72 votes
77
of 77 voters. Really, you have only 77 voters deciding on for the entire population. How do you explain that?
It's rather unfortunate that those are the primary stakeholders. It's just the same with CAF. You know, imagine how many people are in Africa. You imagine the African population. You know, the fate of the African football, you know, the fate of the leadership of African football is in the hands of 54 voters. Same as FIFA. You know, you have 209 member associations, you know, that vote. So, I mean, it's 209 people that actually vote for Infantino, but then he runs the affairs of the, you know, the general, the football of the whole continent, the whole world. So it's the same thing here. It's rather unfortunate that that's how circumstances are, but it's the stakeholders that actually vote. So the fate of over 2 million people in the Gambia is in the hands of 77 voters. And these are the first division clubs, the 16 first division clubs, the 18 second division clubs, the 7 regions that have 4 votes each. The clubs have each 1 vote. The 7 region each has 4 votes, that is 28, plus the allied associations that have 3 votes each, that's 15. So that gives you 77 voters, but that is the...
In that 77 votes, how many votes are you getting come August?
A huge majority. We have a huge majority. The thing is, you know the way African elections are, you know, there are some strong characters that are not shy or are not scared to come out to say, I am associating myself with Team Restore Confidence. This is Sadibou's team. And that is why we're not calling it Sadibou's team. We're calling it Team Restore Confidence. I am just heading the team. So we are avoiding that to say there comes and no. Because our objective is to unite everybody. All those who have gone away, who have moved away, we are bringing everybody back. So we have a good number of people who are actually supporting us. Some of them would rather just be behind the scenes quietly and they know what to do because it's secret ballot. So at the end of the day, we know what to do.
Mr. Sadibou Kamaso, thank you. We've run out of time, but thank you very much for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for giving me the time to come and explain these things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's Sadibou Kamaso. He is one of the 2 presidential candidates for this year's presidential election of the Gambia Football Federation. He was my guest for tonight. I will see you on Friday. Until then, goodbye from me.